Okay, we continue with Lefes Sappirim after we took a break for Hanukkah and we did other stuff. We had Chavrus Dor Shiva and the entire Rambam Hilchos Hanukkah. Go there. It's, lumdus that comes up toch kedei, the learning. Now, I had so much fun doing it that I'm going to start a new Chavrus Dor Shiva series on something very fundamental. And that is the Shoroshim with Hasagas Ramban. The Rambam has 14 lengthy entries on what, in his opinion, qualifies to be counted as one of the Taryag mitzvahs. And you see the Rambam's hand at Lomdus over there and his perspective on Torah in general, and how you see how he thinks Torah Shabbat Peh works. And the Ramban has long hasagas on that, and the Megillas Esther, one of the key pirushim from a latter-day Rishon, says that working over these machloks in the Rambam and the Ramban opened up for him how Gemara really works, even more than the Sfarim that supposedly addressed this topic of understanding Klali Hashas, like the Krisus or the Halichas Olam. So we're going to do that. We're going to do Chavrus Dor Shiva, a few times a week. Rambam, Shoroshim with the Hasagas of the Ramban, Be'ezer Hashem. Target date for starting will be this upcoming Tuesday, Be'ezer Hashem. But anyway, we go back, we resume Mulefes Sappirim. So on Yom Shi'i, the ninth day, on entry Yud Gimel, because of Seif Bereishis, Zohar writes Seif Bereishis. It's also a Tikunei Zohar, Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amid Aleph. V'zorach Hashemesh, and the sun will shine. Zah Kadosh Baruch Hu shel zerach mashpia ba'adam. That's a remiss to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he shines, that he's mashpia to a person. Imu tzadik, that's if a person's a tzadik. Vim lav, but if not, bipi elyon lo tzeitzeiros. Oh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't decree anything bad on a person. Doesn't actively do bad. He actively decrees and just emanates goodness. But if a person is not a tzaddik, Hashem does not want to decree anything bad. Rakuva shemesh, right? Just rather the sun sets, as the pasuk goes on. Vzor shemesh, that's for the tzaddik. But if the rashuva shemesh, right, fine, the sun will just set. Just pulls back from the sun sets. It just won't be mashpia. Not be mashpia also means not emanating protection. And then, then the mechablim, which means in Hebrew terrorists, how apropos, but it means anyone that brings harm can now have dominance over him, because Hashem has removed his protection. So Ribono Shel Olam, he doesn't want to hurt anybody, but if you don't do what he wants, he won't protect you. You brought it upon yourself. You just caused it that he won't intervene on your behalf. So Zorach Hashemesh to the tzaddik, he's mashpia toiven, which includes shmira. Rasha uvasha, just the sun sets. You won't have that emanation, and mi mela, you're vulnerable by your own fault. Okay, Yom Asiri. Night we're up to the 10th day, if you're as this day used to be on a 30-day cycle. Now this is entry Yud Dalid of Malas Tzadikim. These are all Zohars have to do with what the Tzadikim are zocha to, as you recall from the last few sessions. Because of the Sefer Bereishis Daf Nunam and Beis, and on the Zohar Bereishis Nunam and Beis says, person wants to know wisdom. Yistako b'shalheves olam mitocha gachel o b'nera dolek. Right. Take a look at the flame that either climbs out of a coal or a lit candle. The flame. Look at the flame. Now the flame does not rise unless it is connected to something else. The flame, the rising flame needs a base. Otherwise it'll rise and disappear. So it's obviously clinging to sides, clinging to the wick, it's clinging to the coal. Echad or lavan shemeir v'echad or shemitachez mimeno v'hu shachor. Hor lavan ameru l'mala v'ashachor tachav kachu kisei hakovitz. And I'll take a look. in a flame that rises, there are two lights. There's the white light. I guess to us it looks yellow, but there's the white light, which just shines, and then there's another light, right, that it grabs onto, and that light is black, as in invisible, right. So now the visible light is above, and that's always true. The flame, the part that shines brightly is above. So even the blue part that doesn't shine as brightly is below. And there's even something even below that. That's like black fire. So Kachoges also is the divine glory. The Kisei HaKavod. So I'm guessing over here that that the white light that we see from the heavenly white light, that's what comes from on top of the Kisei HaKavod. Right, and the Kisei HaKavod is the base beneath it. The Kisei HaKavod is the seat, so the seat is the base. And I guess what I'm speculating is that what we that the invisible fire or the base is even holier than the visible fire, because this is more perceivable. This is less perceivable because it's it's less perceivable because it's holier, it's loftier. So I'm speculating, every time I learn a sefer with you guys, it's a chavrusa, right? So I'm speculating what he means is that the Kisei HaKavod is like the base, and the light that comes off the Kisei is like the flame that rises. And what you see is only a piece of what really is. There's the black fire, which is even loftier. That's why it's imperceivable, I'm guessing. All right, Tesvav, Kosei for Shemos, Daf Kufanav Beis. So the Zohar Shemos, Kufanav Beis says, Maus Havashne Kru Shochne Afar, as far as the Madrega of the Avos, who are called Shochne Afar, they are called, it is, I guess there must be Sukkim in Tanakh that call them Shochne Afar, the ones who dwell in the dust, right? Meaning referring to the fact that they're currently, seemingly dead, but it doesn't say dead. It says dwell in the dust. And the reason why it says, Dafka Shochne Afar, the dwellers of the dirt or the dust, the dwellers of the ground, as opposed to Mason, dead, is because they didn't die like other people. It's like their body was just put in Geniza in a Masach Peh. And not only that, they are so like not dead like me and you, when we go, because it's like literally their body is just in like safekeeping in Masach, and they could get back to life, come back to life if they wanted to, just like a person can wake up from a sleep. And that's why they know secrets more than other people. Right? I'm not sure, of course they know. See, anyone who's deceased learns Torah in the Masifta de Rakia. So I'm not sure what he's coming to add over here. Does it mean even their bodies are conscious, and even their bodies in Marsa Machpil, no Torah, no Soda Satara? I don't know. Or alternatively, another thing is that we had learned, and previously in an earlier Zohar that he brought us, that you want to know what's going on in this world, you have to, the Neshama has to come down to the Gan Eden Sholmata, the lower Gan Eden, to know what's going on over here and to also hear what's decreed, because in the higher places of heaven, it's not even a point of discussion, if I remember correctly. So maybe they know the secrets of what goes on in this world because they are connected to their body that's still quasi-alive. I don't know. I really don't know. Okay. Sefer Vayikra, Daf Nun Hey Amud Beis, on the Zohar Vayikra Nun Hey Amud Beis, Tosefta. So it's another part of Zohar called Tosefta. So it says, Ugo Malchei Elokim. So now the angels of Hashem bumped into him. That was in the end of Parshas Vayetze. That's Machanaim. So Yaakov was, he had angels that, met him, right? At the very end of Parshas Vayetze. That's what's called Shem Aram Yitzchak, Harei Shavos Dikru Malachim. A Baskel came out and said, these angels, Yaakov that you're seeing, they're the neshamas of Avram and Yitzchak. Right? They are Avram. Now, the strange thing is that, Avram was dead already. That's simple. Avram died when they turned like either 13 or 15, like Rashi says in Parshas Toldos. Right? Yitzchak Avinu was still alive. Yitzchak Avinu is still alive, so I guess Yitzchak could send like an astral projection of himself. That would be the big hitch, because at that time, the time that passed, Yitzchak Avinu was still alive. Yitzchak Avinu actually even lived through the whole story of, not all the 22 years, but he was alive also at the time that Yosef was sold. And Yitzchak says, he perceived that Yosef was still alive, but he wouldn't tell Yaakov because Hashem didn't want Yaakov to know. Right? So I guess there's even a bigger mila that Yitzchak Avinu could send an astral projection of himself. I got that from the comic books, right? Astral, he could like project himself, or he could beam himself there. So that shows even that in their own lifetime, the of us are in the madrig of malachim, that they could, magically just transport themselves somewhere and greet Yaakov Avinu, right? Okay, because of the Sefer Bereshis Daf Kuf Chav Ches Amud Aleph. So in Zohar Bereshis Kuf Chav Ches Amud Aleph, it says Tosefta also from this part of the Zohar. As I said, the Zohar is a composite. There's something called Tosefta. So Amar Rabbi Shimon, the Tosefta records that said Rabbi Shimon, Sarah, at the time that Avram Avinu went into Marsbel to bury Sarah, so Adam and Chava, who were buried there already, got up, and they were blocking him. They were not allowing him to bury Sarah with them. Amru, they said, Anu b'Baishas Ponif, the Hashem Baruch Hu also have actually told Anu Yosef Mitzad Maaseh Matovim. The reason why Adam and Chava were blocking Sarah from being buried there, says Rabbi Shimon, is because Adam and Chava said, we are still ashamed of God, so ashamed of the sin that we did, the sin of the Eitz Hadas. Now we're going to be even more ashamed because we look bad, relative to Sarah, who was a big tzaddikas. She's going to make us look even worse. We feel bad enough, shamed enough over the sin that we did in Gan Eden, before we chucked out of Gan Eden. Now we're going to look even worse with Sarah here next to us. Right? So Avram said, I am destined to daven for you, so you should no longer have shame. Then they were willing, Adam and Chava were willing that Shetikaver Sarah, that Sarah could be buried there. And that's the shot in the part that I understand. After that, he buried Sarah. After that, Hare Malas Avram, right? This is like, so after that, he buried Sarah, after he appeased Adam and Chava. And how did he appease them? I'll pray for you that you won't be embarrassed. That shows the koch of Avraham Avinu, that his tefillah could make things right somewhat, right things for Adam and Chava. God says, Bresh Daf Pei Vav Amid Aleph. So now also the Zohar Bresh is Pei Vav Amid Aleph. Rabbi Yitzchak Pasach, Rabbi Yitzchak opened up and said, Dover Tzeiku Magid Meisharon. Pasach says in Yeshayahu, man who speaks righteousness and speaks, and another Magid Meisharon speaks straight. Right? So what, it's like two different, it sounds like synonyms. Tzedek, Meisharim. We actually had this in Mishlei. It's another thing we have to, Be'ezer Hashem, get back on the horse with Mishlei and Bir HaGro also. There's Tzedek, Mishpat, and Meisharim. So, what's there between Tzedek and Meisharim? It's interesting. We had Mamash dealt with this not too long ago in the Bir HaGro on Mishlei, which we must resume also. It's a reminder we must resume that also. So Bir Yeshua said, Dover, he speaks Tzedek, justice. Magid, he speaks straight. There's Dover and Magid, which sound like synonyms, and Tzedek and Meisharim also on the surface level are also synonyms. So what's the double talk here? Dover, Tzedek, Magid, Meisharim. So says the Zohar, when God created the world, it was shaky. It looked like it was gonna collapse. Omar Sarah Olam. And so now the ministering angel of the world, the Sarah Olam, said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Fishen li tzadik echad al mali skaim. Ribon Shem, what the problem is, why the world that you just created. It looks like it's going to collapse because there's not a single tzaddik to give kiyum to the world. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh says, let's say Avram shoot tzaddik gadol. Right? Well, don't worry. You have to look to the future. There's going to be a tzaddik, a big tzaddik, that could be a pillar of the world, right? Right? And that's and that's what could be darshan. It's a famous drasha throughout the rabbinic literature. Elu todos hashemayim v'artz bihi baram, the story of heaven and earth when they were created. These bihi baram could be inverted to read ba'avraham, right? Right, but b'schus Avram, I think even Rashi brings in the Chumash. So the Zohar says it also that Hashem at the time of creation, he dropped this remes to Avram because the Sarah Olam, the ministering angel, world said, "Look, Hashem, you gave me an unsustainable business over here. The world's good because there's no tzaddik. Look, you got to look to the future. The world should exist on credit because Avram is destined to be born. Now, it's so beautiful. This could be one of the proofs that the Rambam had Zohar, although there's more than one Lashon Chazal that the Rambam could have seen this message about Avram Avinu, that he's called Amudo Shel Olam. It's a place, looks like the Rambam made up a classy phrase about Avram Avinu. He's Amudo, the pillar of the world. So there's no question that this Zohar would be a source for that Rambam. Avram is the pillar of the world. Although there are other midrashim they could have drawn that message from also, right? But it could be a raya. Add to the long list of rayas that there is in the Rav Ruben Margolius's famous pamphlet Harambam Va'azor, that proves that the Rambam says certain things that the only source we know for the Zohar. This could be one of them, I think. But but I know there's a medrash also that the Rambam could have extracted that word, the Avram is Amudo Shel Olam. Okay. So also Avram also Amid Ben Shachri Beis HaMikdash. You want me to feel good about the world, and the world should exist, on credit because Avram Avinu is coming. Well, by the same time, look, you want to look to the future. So let's look all the way to the future. And Avram is going to have a son, i.e. a grandson, Esav, that's going to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. But he said, wait a minute, you're looking at Esav, let's look at Yaakov. So Yaakov is not just a counterbalance to Esav on a one-to-one basis. It's more than that. Yaakov Avinu is an expanding enterprise. He has 12 Shvatim. So Esav's a bad guy, right? But aside from you have Yaakov as a counterbalance, Yaakov is Koach expands into 12 Shvatim, right? So it gives the world a definite reason, to exist, foundation to exist. So that's it. Dover Tzedek, according to Zohar, is referring to Avram Avinu. That he was a tzaddik gadol, in the words of the Zohar. So Dover Tzedek, Hashem first told the Sarah Olam, there's going to be a tzedek, there's going to be a tzaddik, Avram. But then the angel, the Sarah Olam said, but what about Esav? Umagid Meisharim. I'll say, no, there's also going to be straight ones, and that's the Madrig of Yaakov Avinu. Now, we're all called Yisrael and Yeshurun, which was the names that he got already, and they're all Miloshin Yashar, as my Rebbe Moshe Shapiro used to tell. It was in the Maral. Yisrael, Yashar Kel, and Yeshurun, Yashar. That's Meisharim, because the Koch of Yaakov is not just limited to Yaakov. He expands, and he has the Bnei Yisrael. The Bnei, cross Shemo Yisrael v'Yeshurun. Bnei Yisrael, Bnei Yeshurun. Right? that's Magid Mei Shorim. It's going to be all these straight ones that come out of Yaakov Avinu. So so you say about Esau is more than outweighed by the Mei Shorim. So Dover Tzedek Avram Avinu, Magid Mei Shorim is the Yaakov Ubanov. Yeah. We'll do one more. Because they very could have Kufirav on base, so since Vayikra Kufirav on base, Raya Mehimna, this is the Raya Mehimna, again, this is the Zohar that was written under the inspiration of the Nishmas Moshe Rabbeinu. It generally talks about Tamei and mitzvahs, more often than not, right? Kiyada Marishan Chata Ba'avodah Zarah. So the Raya Mehimna says that eating from the tree was actually representative of Adam Rishon actually being nichshol in avodah zara, mamish. Kmo she'amar, vayitze ayin, vayitzav. Excuse me, vayitzav. Hashem commanded him. Ain tzava zara, right? Tzav, that type of command, right? Generally means a command against avodah zara. He doesn't bring how the Zohar knows that. So Vayitzav, right? So Hashem commanded, that's a prohibition against Avodah Zarah. So, so that command not to eat from the Eitzadas had encoded in it not to do Avodah Zarah. And if he did the Chet Eitzadas, he was over on Avodah Zarah. And that's a Gemara in Sanhedrin also. And Ramchal talks about Zindas Tvunis. We're not going to get too bogged down in what way Adam Rishon's Chet also was a Chet Avodah Zarah, but just to say it in very short, Mavin Yavin, believing the BS, pardon my French, of the Nachash, right? I just said the Rosh Tevis, right? Believing the nonsense of the Nachash was apikorsis. Being fooled by the Nachash means he was nichshon. If he had real emuna of Eino Milvadu, he'd never listened to the Nachash, and in that way, his eating from the tree constituted Avodah Zarah. Okay, so Gilgal Koshku was Nishmaso Tipas Terach Shetzav Ramvinu. So this is what the Zohar says. I never knew the Zohar, right? It's not in Bereshit, it's actually Zohar in Vayikra, as we said. Akoshbo was Megalgil Adam Arisha, and his Gilgal was Terach, who begat Avram Avinu. Right? No. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I said it wrong. It's more wild. I don't know why you have to say it this way, but Gilgal Koshvu Nishmasu Betipas Shetza Avram Avinu. Adam Rishon went begilgal into the sperm of Terach that produced Avram Avinu. So you understand, because there should be a tikkun, I guess he couldn't. He had to go into Terach, who was a professional idolater. He was an idolater on a professional basis. So he went into the tipa, the sperm of Terach that actually produced Avram Avinu, right? That made Avram Avinu, right? Jor Matzov, Nechlas Atzo Kipsha Shekayim Bo Psilhem Distrophone. Because look what happened. Avram Avinu for sure is a tikkun of Adam Rishon, because Avram Avinu was anti-Avodah Zarah. He broke all of Terach's idols, and now that he himself got purified with fire, he was thrown into the furnace for his emunah, and was willing to be burnt al Kiddush Hashem. But there's also an interesting thing over here, which actually proves this might be another Zohar that the Rambam had. The Zohar says Avram Avinu being thrown in the fire, aside from breaking Terach's idols, but it also says regarding destroying a brother, not just to break them, but also to burn their idols in fire, and that was Mekuyim in Avram Avinu when he got thrown into the Kivshan Eish and got purified. He got saved, but it was a purifying experience. And I'm speculating, but I think it's an educated guess that is referring to the famous Rambam, that the Rambam says that in Hilchos Avodah Zarah, Avram Avinu, even if he began his odyssey to discover truth at a very young age, he's initially, not having his independence, served Avodah Zarah together with his parents. He was Obedi Mohem and Lashon, but it's still a Sechos Meshotet. He went through the motions, but he was still questioning, right? So Avram Avinu himself, because of the avodah zarah that he had done as a child, before he totally figured out the truth, also had to be burnt out of him, so to speak. That's what it sounds like. Now, because it was like the sperm of Terach that became Avram, so he also schleps Terach to Tikkun. That's why Terach, Chazal tells us at the end, did tshuva. So Avram Avinu was in this. The Zohar saying this. He was purified by fire. Like Kesef Atzorov, Shetzol Ferish, Mesildo Beish, it's like, iron, like silver ore that has in it a little bit of lead. So you got to burn it, smelt it to get the lead out. Also, aside, the purification process continued further. All right, so Avinu himself got his personal purification from the fire. So that would purify how he was Adam Arishan in a previous Gilgal, and did Avodah Zarah, it would purify him from the Avodah Zarah that he himself did, right? And it was the Avodah Zarah Dika aspect of him got burnt up in that fire that he was miraculously saved from, right? So it was a purifying experience for him. And since he came from the seed of Terach, the Gilgal Abzer, he schlepped Terach, who was a professional idolater, to Tikkun, right? Mamish. Payback for Chet Adam Rishon big time, with interest, right? But the smelting process of getting the impurity out continues. When Avinu begat Yishmael, there was actually a purifying experience to get the bad side of him further out. Whatever badness was left in him got smelted out with Yishmael coming out from him. You have to view it that Yishmael was the emergence from Avram Avinu of anything that's still needs tikkun out of Avram Avinu in the form of Yishmael. And Avram remains clean. And that's why Yishmael, he was, Sarah sees him mitzachek, laughing. So one of the opinions is that he was doing avodah zarah. They learned it out from the ego that they kumam litzachek, they got up to laugh, and that so Sarah. That's why I said throw the bum out of the house. Yishmael, right? Because he was doing avodah zarah, right? Because he is now Yishmael is like the avodah zarah of Adam Arishan now is totally smelted out and it exists in Yishmael. It was isolated in Yishmael, the avodah zarah done by Adam Arishan, right? And that in any way, shape, or form, carried through to Avram, that's now out. And Yishmael is like the living embodiment of the avodah zarah perpetrated by Adam Arishan, and that's out of the Jewish people. Right. Yitzchak Taken Avar Adam Shechatam. Now Yitzchak Vidu comes also to fix the sin of Adam that, right? He also did Shvichus Damim. He murdered. Now, this could be Dazar, it's open interpreted. There's two ways to look at this, and they're both true. Like, first of all, Adam Rishon was a murderer in the sense that he brought death to the world. He brought death upon us. If not for him, there would be no such thing as death, right? He brought death to the world. So in that way, he's a murderer. But there's another thing that I don't know if the Zohar is referring to this also or not, but why not? Maybe. And that is that Adam separated from Chava for 130 years. And during that time, said, his seed was, God, it seems that he spilled seed during that time, which created all types of demonic forces. So that spilled seed is also, death, killing, right? Killing. It's not the same as killing a whole person, right? Right. So, but either way, so Adam Rishon in some way was guilty of murder, and Yitzchak Vidu constantly matake in that aspect. Right. So now, parallel to that, Yitzchak Avinu is willing to do the opposite. Killing is bringing death on the world. He's willing to die for Hashem, to die al Kiddush Hashem. He was willing. He is being willing to die al Kiddush Hashem is a kapara for Adam Rishon, having brought death to the world. You bring death to the world, you have to. The person who brings death, that gets the death penalty. Yitzchak Avinu was willing to die al Kiddush Hashem, which is mechaper on the avon of Retzicha of Adam Rishon. That's Esav Shovech Dam, and parallel to that, since we're about cleansing the Shvichas Damim aspect of Adam Rishon, so now to complete the cleansing process, out of Yitzchak comes Esav, who is a murderer. And now the aspect of murder that was mixed up in Adam Rishon is getting smelted out of Klal Yisrael by Esav. Now Esav carries all the murder genes in him totally, and he's excluded from the Jewish gene pool. Right? So now Yaakov Avinu is coming to fix, right, the sin of promiscuity. Oh, so the Zohar is actually, yes, referencing to the how he spilled his seed, but the Zohar is referring to it as, the spilling of the seed as, being promiscuity, or promiscuity in addition to murder. Now, Lamasa, we have both Lashonos in the Gemara. When the Talmud talks about the sin of sin of spilling seed, hashchas zerel vatola. All right, so the Gemara has one lashon that it's shochte. A lot of you killing kids, right? It's like kind of murder. It's like murder, and there's a lashon Gemara that's called lo sinaf, right? It's called adultery. You're committing adultery with yourself. So so both lashonos are true. That Hashazara is Shvichas Damim, and Zara is a type of Gilead rice. Both Chazal say both drushes about spilling seed, right? Right? That's why Yaakov's working so hard, by Lavan. And he had exchanged Leah for Rachel. So now, what I speculate is the pshat in this Zohar, right? Is two things. First of all, Yaakov Avinu says in Parashas Vayechi, Reuven b'chored kochi v'reishis oni, right? You are my first and the beginning of my strength. That he never saw Kerry in his life. So now all that time he was working hard in life. He wants to get married. He went there to get married. Yitzchak and Rivka sent him there to get married, right? So now he's working so hard, so he has to obviously hold it all in. He's anticipating married, until he finishes his 7 years of work, right? And then he finally gets Leah. But it's still not his real intended zivug, Rachel, so he still has to wait another 7 years. And no, so even though he gets Rachel 7 days later, but he had to pay for another 7 years, working so hard for a wife, in addition to never spilling the seed ever, right? But still, he has to work so hard for his zivug, right? So that's for sure a kapara, being machaper on how Adam Rishon spilled seed, because zivug is when the seed is supposed to come out. So A, he never did it in the wrong way. B, for doing it the right way, he had to work so hard to be zoche, and that was a kapara for the Otzar Zol Vatol of Adam Rishon. Wow, amazing stuff. But at least look at this. At least Yaakov Avinu mitaso shleima. There was nothing to be smelted out. Nothing to be smelted out, which I guess also should be a message of encouragement to us. That the tikkun of Otzar Zol Vatola, as bad as it is, al pi Kabbalah, but we see over here, it could have a complete tikkun. And you can have a complete tikkun. You don't necessarily have to have bad kids. You just have to work hard. Work hard. The Zohar says, Ni tshuva yosir, other Zohars. I don't think we did yet. Okay. We did a lot for one day. All right. The schos of Sefer Azar. should help us to it should give first of all give us your Shemaim as it's Mesugel to do, but also Lukme Shchinta Mafresh, Lukme Shchinta Min Galusa Ben Nifkun Min Galusa Baracha Min Bimhero B'Yameinu.